Welcome to ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell. I'm the host of the show today. This is the 3 o'clock block on Tuesday. And today joining us is Brad Kai Fox. Kai is his actual trade name. Okay. And he's an assistant extension specialist. As soon as I say the word extension, you know it's in CTAR, because I think, or agriculture anyway, extension specialist. Extension means getting out there in the field, yeah? At CTAR, at the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. And I used to always ask anybody from CTAR, explain why human resources was linked with tropical agriculture, but I stopped asking that question. So I won't burden you with that question. But it still lingers in the air, that question. At UH Manoa, and he is into fish physiology and endocrinology, and he is an expert in, or working in, you tell me if you're an expert or not, he's working in aquaponics, and the title of our show today is New Progress in Aquaponics. ThinkTech has done many shows on aquaponics, so we are not without some peripheral knowledge of this, and we are fans of aquaponics, I might add. And I am very happy to have you here to update us on what's going on. But first, tell us who you are, Kai. What's your training and what's your research right now covering?
Okay. Well, I'm a local boy, born and raised in Honolulu. I went to UH Lab School from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. After high school, I attended the University of Redlands in Southern California, got my degree in biology. After returning home, I spent a couple years in the private sector, and then eventually went back to grad school at UH Manoa in CTAR. First, I got my master's in animal science in HENFAS, and then PhD in the department I'm currently in, which is molecular biosciences and bioengineering. And I'm now a faculty member in that department. And as you said, I'm an extension specialist, so we're tasked with a number of different things, not only research, but also extension activities out in the community. So right now we focus a lot on aquaponics, primarily because there's a lot of interest, specifically from our stakeholders.
You probably know Benny Ron.
I do.
Yeah, Benny Ron has been at this table many times.
Right, actually we are academic siblings of sorts. We got our degrees from the same laboratory, Dr. Gordon Grau's laboratory.
He's been on the show.
Oh.
Yeah. See what a small world it is. We do follow aquaponics. So what is CTAR doing in aquaponics? I mean, can we say that CTAR is the center of aquaponics for UH?
Yes, I mean, you can say that for sure. We do a lot of research on aquaponics, from aquatic feed development to diversifying our aquaponics is primarily freshwater aquaculture-based system, so diversifying our freshwater aquaculture species. A lot of people aren't satisfied with only tilapia, so we also work with...
they think tilapia is a rubbish fish.
Well, it does have a stigma.
They got a bias about that, even though tilapia is, what is it, St. Peter's fish outside the U.S. and
Absolutely.
In the Middle East, it's a delicacy already.
Right, it's the second most cultured fish in the world. Yeah. It's a very popular fish, a very good fish. If you culture it under the right conditions, you feed it the right stuff, it's an excellent fish.
Yeah. So what other fish are you working with?
Chinese catfish, another catfish called swai from Southeast Asia.
Stell?
SWAI. It's also called tuna catfish or iridescent shark. There's a number of names. It's also an ornamental fish when it's smaller, but it's a very, very good food fish as well. The pacu, which is a vegetarian cousin of the piranha. Yeah, basically.
Oh, you heard it on ThinkTech. See, the piranha happens to be the flesh-eating fish, including people flesh. But pacu? Pacu is the kissing cousin.
Right.
It doesn't eat flesh.
Right.
But how can you tell the difference? Well, you see if your arm is still there.
Well, no, that's actually a really good question. Currently, we don't have any broodstock animals in the state, so we have to import all of our pacu in, and we're limited by the size that we can bring them in, because the Department of Agriculture needs them, I think it's 4 inches, needs to be 4 inches, because if they're smaller than that, they can't distinguish them from piranha. So we have to bring them in.
We don't permit piranha.
Oh, absolutely not. No piranha. Yeah.
Well, that's great stuff. Okay, so tell us more about what CTAR is doing.
So diversifying the fish side, working on the feed, And then also working on system design, and vegetable trials. So CTAR is a very diverse college. So we have the animal side, we have the bacterial side, expertise in all of that, pest management side, and also the vegetable side. So variety trials in aquaponics, very important, especially for commercial producers. Trying a variety of different, Dr. Ted Radovich, for example, doing pak choy variety trials, beet trials, integrated pest management strategies. Our extension agents Jerry Sugano and Jensen Ueda, as well as Kun Hui Wang, are doing integrated pest management where they're trying to attract beneficial insects to attack stuff like aphids and other bad insects. So really we're bringing together all the resources of the college to basically develop a new way of farming, a new system of agriculture. So all parts of it need to be addressed pretty much simultaneously.
Who's your dean?
Our dean is Maria Gallo. She was just recently hired, I think a year and a half ago. Excellent dean. She's very supportive of our program.
We've had John Paul Bingham on the show a couple times.
He's in my department.
Oh, is that right? And he does the toxins from the what is it?
The cone shell.
Oh yeah, the snails. Amazing work.
Yeah.
Amazing work, and deadly in a certain sense. That right here in Hawaii we have deadly snail toxins.
But they may also have beneficial aspects to the venom. Yeah.
True. So the study. But it's, it sounds to me, and I don't know if you've been there long enough to answer this, but it sounds to me like CITAR, first of all, CITAR has the lock on doing research with local flora and fauna. I mean, it's what's going on. And the other thing is, it seems to me that CITAR is growing. It's at the level of, depth of the research, the value of the research seems to be getting more and more relevant to solving important problems in the world. Am I right about that?
Yeah, maybe I haven't been there long enough to see the long-term perspective on that. I mean, we'd like to think so. It's the land-grant college, so that is one of our missions, is to directly help stakeholders develop, diversify the economy, do it in a sustainable way, strengthen communities, all that kind of stuff. The college itself is a national trend with land-grant colleges. Unfortunately, the funding is being cut significantly. I think we lost a dozen or more extension positions last year. Probably going to lose some more.
Bad.
Yeah, actually,
this is federal money.
Yeah, USDA money, right?
Yeah.
As far as I understand.
No, wait till Thursday. You lose everything.
Oh,
I'm only kidding.
So
Thursday is October 17th. It's the cliff. Yeah.
The fiscal cliff. So I think, in general, in my time at CITAR, I think the quality of work has gotten better, but yeah, definitely the overall staffing has decreased.
Yeah. Oh, too bad to hear that. Maybe that'll change. So, one wraparound question on all of this discussion in this part of our show. Why did you do this? Why are you doing this? Where are you in the educational continuum, and where are you going to go? So give us that.
Okay. So, well, again, the reason our lab in particular, and this is I work with.
No, the reason you.
Oh, the reason I do it. Well, I'm very interested in this stuff. Aquaculture has fascinated me for a long time. I think this kind of integrated agriculture, where you have plants and animals together, is the way of the future. At least one way of the future. I think it's more efficient that way. You capture 2 crops instead of just one. Also, in particular with aquaponics, there's a number of advantages. Not to say aquaponics is the answer for everything, but it has some advantages over traditional agriculture that I personally like. One of them is that it's soilless, and this is similar to hydroponics. So we no longer soilless.
Soilless.
Soilless. We
You
don't.
never have to plant anything in the soil.
That's right. That's right. So, and also on top of that, nothing goes into the soil. Nothing, excess
It
nutrients.
stays in the system.
It's sort of all recirculating, right?
Okay.
So to me, that's very important. As we move forward, the population increases. Additionally, similar to hydroponics, so a lot of these advantages are similar to hydroponics. We can use marginal.
What's the difference?
The difference is, okay, Aquaponics is a combination of two technologies: aquaculture, which is growing aquatic animals in a controlled environment, and hydroponics, which is growing plants without soil, soilless.
So hydroponics is only one half of the equation of aquaponics.
That's right. And typically with hydroponics, the nutrients that you introduce into the system are derived from synthetic sources. So you have to import synthetically derived, usually powdered nutrients to add to the system.
Yeah.
Whereas aquaponics, the nutrients are generated by the animals. You feed the fish, and nutrients are generated, which feeds the plants. So.
I tell you, the truth is, I always wondered about aquaponics because it's like nature is allowing us to have a, it's like a perpetual motion machine. I mean, if it's done right, it just continues on and off, and on and on, and you just pull out what you need, and the whole thing is like a little micro environment there that keeps on producing things. I mean, it's the perfect machine.
It is. It's close. But there are limitations for sure.
Tell us the limitations.
Well, so for example, there essentially, it's very hard to have a completely closed. I mean, it's impossible to have in a mass balance sort of way to have something and then only take things out.
It deteriorates.
Right. You're just going to be removing things. You have to input something. So, for example, the major bottleneck. There's a couple with aquaponics that people complain about and are totally valid. One is energy. At the moment, we have to move water from one place to another. We also have to provide oxygen for the animals. Both of those require energy. And so typically right now, electrical energy, metal motors, plastics are all used. So we have to input some amount of energy. Now this can be done using renewable energy, absolutely. We have many systems that are run on solar, battery backup. It's expensive. So that's a problem right now.
But that's the problem of renewable energy.
It's the problem.
It costs money for the infrastructure. Once you put the infrastructure in place, it doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely. And conventional agriculture and organic agriculture both require energy as well. So, food takes energy to be produced.
So what are you using in your experiments? Do you use wind or solar or both?
Well, for mostly for demonstration purposes, we use solar. We're not so much, we don't have the expertise to develop new energy systems, but typically for our pumps and aeration systems, we use solar. It's the most easy for us to understand and to use and to implement. Mm-hmm. So energy is one. Feed and micronutrients is the other major bottleneck. Right now, it turns out that the requirements for macro and micronutrients requirements for plants and animals are actually pretty similar. So because of that, we lucked out. We can feed fish. We can design a pelleted feed for fish that will make them grow, and then the leftover nutrients that go through them can feed the plants. So, but these pelleted diets have to be imported. We don't produce. We don't have a feed mill in the state, which is amazing.
So do you produce them?
We produce on a small scale for experimental trials, but we're talking very small scale. So commercially and backyard, everybody's using imported.
Well, that's terrible.
Feed, right? So it's not this utopian closed system.
You have to spend money for that.
Well,
and
absolutely.
energy, bringing it in. But we have the proteins that we can make. We can make the food here, can't we?
Well, that's the challenge now. I think a lot of people are trying to work on that. It would be nice if we made more progress on that.
Okay, just before we take a break, we'll take a break in a minute. But what do you do to make the fish food? What kind of pellets? Where do you get the pellets? What's in the pellets?
So, commercial pellets. There's a whole science of commercial animal feed production in general. I'm not an expert on that, but in general, you need protein, you need vitamins, you need minerals, you need a binder to hold the pellet together. There's floating pellets, there's sinking pellets. You also need fat, and you need an attractant. Otherwise, the animals won't go and hit the feed. So there's actually pretty complicated.
Could we do it here?
Absolutely. we could do it here.
So you're working on that, among other things.
We are collaborating with people. There are other experts in feed production, but yeah, there
Here
are.
at Sitar.
Sitar and also Oceanic Institute has some experts there too.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, Kai, but we'll be right back to, want to go further into exactly what the progress is in this perpetual motion, almost perpetual motion machine that you're working on. That's Kai Fox, Assistant Extension Specialist at CTAR, the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at UH Manoa, a land grant college. It's important that not all the colleges at UH Manoa are land grant. There's only a couple, 3 of them, I think.
It's just one.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. And he knows about hormone and gene expression, molecular biology, and biological engineering, about fish and stuff. And we're talking today about new progress in aquaponics here on ThinkTech on a given Tuesday. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi, I'm Steve Petranek, editor of Hawaii Business Magazine, and I'm going to be part of Newsmorphosis 3, a look at online news in Hawaii. And along with me there will be Patty Epler of Civil Beat and HuffPost Hawaii, Malia Zimmerman of Hawaii Reporter, Jared Kuroiva of KHON, and moderating us all is Howard Dykes of Hawaii News Now. If you want to know how Hawaii it gets its news now and will be getting it in the future, you need to be at Newsmorphosis 3. That's at 11:30 on October 24th at the Plaza Club. See you then. Hi.
Good evening. We're delighted that you've come to us today. We are here for ThinkTech Hawaii. Important issues, important people, people who talk too much. It's all right. You haven't got anything else to do.
Don't you love Jeff Gear? I tell you, he's so funny. That's our storyteller here on ThinkTech, and he's going to be on a couple of times in the next couple of weeks. He has been on a few times already. We love having him on. Anyway, I'm here with Kai Fox, Assistant Extension Specialist at CTAR UH Manoa. We're talking about new progress in aquaponics. So the thing I get is that, if we had a closed system, if we could make this thing perfectly closed, that would be like, first of all, be miraculous against nature. Maybe not, Mother Nature wouldn't really, like that. I think so, because things change, they deteriorate in the real world. So the idea is to make it as closed as we can make it, and to have less, input and, renewal, so that it operates mostly by itself. And then when we do that, there's less room for mistake. So first of all, let's explore, in the science of aquaponics to date, there have been a lot of people in the islands who have tried to do aquaponics, but they run into snags, and some of them, it doesn't work. What are the kinds of snags they run into so the system deteriorates and they don't get food out of it?
That's a good question. There are a lot of situations that can lead to sort of system collapse. Primarily, when you talk about an aquaponic system not working or stopping to work all of a sudden, you're talking about the fish. Once the fish,
Because that's what people take out of it.
that's what people take out of, but it's also the most sensitive part of the system.
Sure.
Once you've established your bacteria colony and your plants are growing, it takes a lot besides pests, to affect the plants. But in terms of the system functioning, the plant should be okay, the bacteria should be okay for a while, unless you do something like, add Clorox to the system. Of course, that's going to kill everything. But if the fish die, it's very discouraging. You have to kind of start, you have to get new fish, you have to clean out the system. So a lot of times
You can't just drop new fish in. You have to start from scratch somehow.
Well, you'd like to figure out why they died first, right? Because you wouldn't want it to happen again. And there's a variety of reasons why that happens. Again, I think when we talk about this, we have to sort of separate the backyard, small commercial producer to the larger guys, because there are a few larger guys now.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for sure.
Right, but so in general, I think there's a few key steps. Overfeeding is usually the most the most lethal.
Why do people do that? And they just make a mistake.
I think they just make a mistake. They figure that fish are always hungry and they always need to be fed, which is that's of course you're going to think that if you haven't had much experience with fish before.
People have relationships with fish. Just like my wife with our puppy, she overfeeds our poor puppy because she loves the puppy, and you feel that the fish. I mean, I heard this from someone who does aquaculture. You love the fish; they're your friends. You want to take care of them. You want them to survive, even though they're going to get eaten soon enough. And he won't eat them, by the way. He can't eat them. They're his friends. But anyway, so you tend to overfeed them. What else do you do that might throw it off?
Right. So I think the concept, let me just back up there for a second. If you leave a bowl of puppy food out in a room, the puppy won't die. But if you have because it's just air, right? The feed isn't breaking down into the air and clogging his lungs and all that.
Yeah.
It's different for fish, right? If you keep throwing feed in, the water's going to foul very quickly.
Yeah.
And once one or two
Bacteria
fish
start eating the fish.
Bacteria.
I mean the food, rather.
Absolutely. And their byproducts, their metabolism of this feed
Toxins.
decreases the water quality. It brings down the water level.
Yeah.
The water oxygen level decreases very quickly. That can kill the fish. And then, like you said, all these metabolic byproducts come out and are toxic, and then it's just a downward spiral from there. So it's very easy to overfeed and kill your fish.
So you have to feed them at a certain amount where they can eat that, and they can take it out of the water, so the water is not overfilled.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do you know how much you should feed them?
Right, and that's a good question. And basically, what we recommend to people is to feed to what we call satiation. So satiation feeding. So you feed a little bit. You wait for them to, basically we call it the 5-minute rule. If they don't consume that food in 5 minutes,
You fed them too much.
and you take out the remaining.
Like skim it off the top.
Skim it off. Tilapia can live a very long time, a couple weeks at least, without any feed, and they're fine. So I think that's the mistake. But fish will tell you. They are the sort of the indicators for your system. They're the biological indicators. And if they don't eat, something is wrong. So the first thing you should do is just not to feed. Just stop feeding right away.
Yeah. Now, I think some people will say, "Oh no, we got to fatten them up," and so they'll feed them without regard to that rule. Okay, what else? What else tends to bring these systems down? Is that the primary thing?
Right. I think that's the primary thing. Sometimes people don't monitor the aeration in their system. Some people use, we call them spray bars. We use water to disrupt the surface of a spray of water to disrupt the surface. Oxygenate the water. That gets plugged sometimes. Errant scales floating in the water will plug the hole, or just filamentous bacteria builds up, plugs the hole, so that the stream is very weak, and then dissolved oxygen drops quickly. That can kill fish. That's one.
So, I mean, if there's not enough oxygen in the water, the fish don't do well.
Right, absolutely.
They die.
Right, they die fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And depending on the species of fish, tilapia is more hardy than other fish, but they still need oxygen.
Yeah, okay.
So I would say feeding, then oxygen. And what we're finding recently is that pH is important also. A lot of people will say, well, yeah, duh. I mean, we've known that for a long time. Well, aquaponics systems generate the process of nitrification, of breaking down the fish waste into usable plant food from ammonia to nitrate, lowers the pH. So aquaponic systems inherently are always becoming acidic. And when a few years ago, when lots of people were starting to do backyard systems, and nobody really thought about remediating the pH, actually trying to stabilize the pH, because the fish were surviving for a long time, extended couple years even, and everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, in the past year and a half, we've had a lot of people complaining about fish dying. And there's another thing that kills tilapia, a whole another subject, a tilapia disease called Francisella.
What is it again?
Francisella.
Francisella?
Yeah.
I think I knew him. He was not a nice person.
So we've been able to rule out this bacteria in a lot of these cases, and it turns out that the pH is just too low, downwards of pH 4 or less in these systems, which is actually really low. So
That means acidic.
very acidic.
Okay.
Yeah. 7 is neutral. Anything below 7 is acidic.
After a while, that really hurts your health.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But again, tilapia are very hardy, and again, these animals are still feeding even at these low pHs. So it's that indicator. They seem like they're okay, and for the most part they are. But there is a lower threshold, for pH, and but it's very easy to remediate that. Basically, you just use coral. You just get the Amaron coral rocks and put it in a bag.
You mean actual coral. Living, growing coral?
No, dead coral. Like either sand or coral. They sell chunks of it, for your garden. And
it balances the pH.
Balances the pH. It's calcium carbonate.
So it dissolves in the water and the calcium. Okay. So, so what I hear you saying is that all of these three things, I guess, can be controlled.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so you got to mother it. You got to look in on them every day.
You do.
And you have to have ways to test that they're within boundaries, and then you have ways to fix if they're not in boundaries.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Every day.
Can you automate any of this? You say the coral. Maybe the coral takes that one out of the mothering, so to speak, and it operates by itself.
Definitely, and we have done several experiments for the last couple of years, over and over with multiple aquaponic systems, and I think we finally dialed in just about how much coral you need to add. Again, we put it in a bag. We don't want the pH to go too high because that makes the toxins that the fish produce more toxic to the fish. So we do want it to be slightly acidic. Also, by having the water slightly acidic, the micronutrients in the water are available to the plants. There's something called a pH block. If the pH is too high, the plants can't take up the nutrients from the water. So you actually need it. So there's a happy medium for the bacteria, the plants, and the fish. And it's probably between 6 and 6.5 pH. And we think we're pretty close to we know just about how much coral. And also the size of the coral, the diameter of the fragments matters, because the smaller the fragment, the more surface area it has. So if you have sand, 1 pound of sand is not equivalent to 1 pound of rocks like this, right? The dissolution rate.
It's the surface,
surface area, right?
Okay, so you're studying the coral. You can figure out a way to hit it pretty close to creating a balance. On the question of what was the other one, oxygenation. That it sounds like a machine could be developed to do that, to where you pump oxygen in there. It takes a little energy, but you pump oxygen in there at a rate and you measure it. So the pump is going to be dependent on the amount of oxygen in the water. It just keeps on going. You don't have to worry about it, right?
That's absolutely true. So again, the field of aquaculture and the field of hydroponics have essentially evolved independently for decades, and in the past maybe 20 years have started to hybridize. So keeping fish alive in high density, yes, we know how to do that. You can inject pure oxygen. Very expensive, but absolutely.
Because of the cost of oxygen, or the cost of the energy?
The cost, no, it's more the cost of the oxygen, the cost of the monitors, the oxygen probes, and then the robot to deliver it. All of those things. I mean, for a backyard system, it really doesn't make sense to do that. But the commercial guys, I think, may consider that as they get bigger. Yeah.
Okay, and then the third one, which is the one you spoke about first, was the amount of food. It seems that you could measure by displacement the weight of the fish in the tank. Okay, and then you could determine by the species and whatnot exactly how much food they need, and then feed them only that much, and have that automated also. No?
Sure. I think that part, to take the human part out of that, would be dangerous. I think even in large commercial operations, it's mostly done by humans at this point. Definitely, they're calculating based on the rate, the biomass, the growth of the fish. They know how much to keep adding. For instance, very small fish can consume up to 40% of their weight daily. Larger fish, 4%. So there's a huge change in the amount of feed that you should give based on the biomass. We know all of that, and there are automatic feeders. But again, I think the automatic feeders a lot of times are the reason why the systems fail. The thing feeds it anyway, even though the fish aren't hungry.
Excuse me. So all of this ultimately requires somebody to be there. And we're going to talk about the difference between somebody being a guy operating his backyard aquaponics facility versus a large commercial facility, which is something that Hawaii really could use. Wouldn't that be wonderful for sustainability? So I want to talk about that with you next. That's Kai Fox. He's an assistant extension specialist at CTAR, the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at UH Manoa. We're talking about new progress in aquaponics. I'm Jay Fidell. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
We're back, we're live, we're at ThinkTech, we're having a good time learning about aquaponics, which we consider very important. Brad Kai Fox is here, Assistant Extension Specialist at the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources at UH Manoa. We're talking about new progress in aquaponics. We've been following it for a while and wondering about it, and Kai is kind of revealing to us how it's doing, which is really important that we know about this. You have to come back again later, and keep us current.
Okay.
Anyway, so I wanted to make a distinction between the backyard operation, and the larger commercial operations, which I think those are important for Hawaii's future. I've seen I saw one in a sort of model energy house in Kaimuki a couple of years ago. That was really quite, and the guy who put the house together, he presented the system, and there it was, a little wee aquaponics system. I wonder if it's still there, I'm not sure it is. So I wanted to ask you, what is the sort of the maintenance obligation, if you will, in a backyard system like that versus what Fred Lau does at, what was his operation called?
At Mari's Garden.
Mari's Garden, which is in Mililani, as I recall. And we have made a show about it. Now, if you look on our YouTube offerings and at thinktechhawaii.com, there's a video about our visit out there, which was very interesting. Okay, so first let's look at the maintenance obligations of the guy in the little facility.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, depending on the size, but yeah, relatively small, say 4 by 8 foot grow bed maximum, with like a 150 gallon tank. Actually, pretty low amount of maintenance. The key is daily maintenance, just to check up on it. I would say, depending on really what you want to get out of it, because again, that's varies widely from stakeholders, especially backyard guys. Some people grow flowers, some people grow koi fish, which they don't eat. Right? I mean,
they're friends.
They're friends, right? Some people grow vegetables, some people grow fruit trees. So it boils down to the production level of the backyard person. But in general, I would say, a system like that, not more than 10 or 15 minutes every day, just to check, make sure the air is on, the fish are eating, whatever plants you need to replace are planted. If there's any pest issues, check it out. I mean, relatively low input.
So as an extension specialist, you could be available to help a backyard guy. I mean, for example, I keep thinking of all the, it's the way it is. We have subsistence farmers all over the state, especially I think in the Big Island, who live off their backyard. It's the way it is, and they're happy doing that. But they need help in order to actually live off their backyard. So are you available to go out there and help them, show them?
Yeah, actually, we do that a lot. And we also partner a lot with community groups like God's Country Waimanalo, for example, who do, it's much more efficient for us to deliver this kind of information to larger groups, right? Workshops and stuff like that.
Sure, call them in.
Yeah, bring them in, and but yeah, absolutely, we work with lots of backyard people, especially with the disease study. When we're trying to find out where the disease fish are. There's asymptomatic carriers that don't look like they're sick, and then when the heavy rain event or the temperature drops, they die. These kind of things, and then we'll try to replace the fish and monitor. monitor the disease over time. But yeah, helping backyard people is definitely part of our mission, our extension
Do
activity.
you have a sense of how many backyard people are out there living off the backyard?
No, we don't. That's information which would be really valuable, I think, for a lot of people. I think the closest we can get is to one of the larger suppliers of aquaponic equipment is Waimanalo Feed Supply in Waimanalo. They sell a variety of turnkey aquaponic system. I think probably the best
They
way
would know.
They would have at least an idea of the volume.
Next time you come on the show, we'll bring them too. How's that?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's
two of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
What about that guy from the Virgin Islands? I forget his name. He's come here a couple of times.
Dr. James Rakosi.
That's it,
Yep.
Rakosi. Yeah. We interviewed him.
Oh,
Yeah, a couple of times actually. Is he still coming? Is he still a world leader on this stuff?
yeah, for sure. As far as I know, he retired from the Virgin.
Oh, that's
University of
right.
Virgin
I knew that. Yeah.
But I think he continues to be a consultant.
Yeah. Well, it is spreading around the world, isn't it? I mean, but do you have the sense that is Hawaii a better place than other places for this kind of aquaponics?
Well, let me just back up. In terms of interest in it, in terms of number of aquaponic systems, I don't know, but one of a graduate student in our college, Kanai Tokunaga, just completed a study on economic viability of aquaponic
Yeah.
systems, commercial aquaponic systems. As part of her study, she mined some Google data. So there's this public web facility called Google Trends. I don't know if you're familiar with it. As of May 18th of this year, people were Googling aquaponics the most per capita in Honolulu, Hawaii, worldwide, by far.
Those who Googled aquaponics were Googling aquaponics in Honolulu or Hawaii.
By far. The next
Yeah.
5 cities were Australian, and then there was, I think, Colorado and Los Angeles. But so the interest is definitely here. So I think there are a lot of systems. Sorry, I forgot.
Objectively, to take off on that, objectively, is this a better place? I mean, because of the environment, the sun, whatever, the fair weather and all that. Does that make it better than, say, Newark, New Jersey?
Well, I think absolutely, simply because of the cost of it and the year-round growing season in the tropics.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I visited Wisconsin this summer. I spoke at a conference over there, and 100% of the systems in Wisconsin are in controlled environments. They're in greenhouses. Yeah, and which is great. I mean, they use natural sunlight during the summer months, the short growing season, but then they also use grow lights, metal halide lights, LED grow lights, stuff like that. So per area cost, definitely you can have much bigger systems if you're using natural sunlight without the greenhouses. So I think
Okay, and it's cheaper, too.
It's way cheaper. Yeah, way cheaper.
Greenhouses are expensive, and so are lights.
Definitely. And
But theoretically, you could build it all inside if you had to.
Oh, absolutely, and there are a number of even commercial size systems that are in greenhouses, heated greenhouses. The heat is actually the major cost, I think, as
Expensive,
far as I
yeah.
understand.
Yeah. Well, here we are going into our last break, and I just wanted to get on to the commercial thing, because the commercial thing is really interesting. It sounds to me like that we haven't had explosive growth in the backyard thing. and part of that is, I think, because you're still working out the bugs and coming up with a set of parameters that will make it easier for people to do, and of course educating them. But what about the commercial guys? Because if they put some money into it, and they, by definition, will get educated, then they could have pretty big installations here. Tell me the ones we have, and tell me what you think the future is for commercial.
Okay, yeah, so on Oahu, I guess I'll just talk. We have 4 or 5 in the state, but the ones on Oahu that are the largest are Mari's Garden, Ili Farms in Waianae, and Kunia Country Farms.
All in Oahu?
Those are all on Oahu. They are, according to the study by Pingsung Leong and Kanai Tokunaga, and Clyde Tamaro and Hariako, they are all profitable.
Profitable?
Yes. And that includes the initial startup, labor, energy input, feed input, all of that was analyzed.
That's great.
Yes. And it's actually really fascinating because in most of the cases, the vegetables are what make it profitable. In some of the cases,
not the fish.
but in some cases, the fish are a necessary part, but the vegetables also make it profitable. So there's again, it's both that are necessary for it to work.
We'll take a last break here, Kai, and we'll come back. I'd like to find out how you do it. How you do a commercial one, how you do a backyard one. Where do you start? What number do you dial first? Do they call you? I'll be right back. This is Kai Fox, Assistant Extension Specialist at CTAR and UH Manoa. We're talking about new progress in aquaponics in Hawaii. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone Number 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Maria Kashem of ThinkTech Hawaii, and I want to tell you about our ThinkTech talk shows. If you didn't know it, ThinkTech streams video and audio for all of its shows live on the internet from 2 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon, and we replay them all night long on ustream.tv. Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links. Raise your awareness on ThinkTech. I'm Maria Kashem, and I'll see you there.
We're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell of ThinkTech here on the Tuesday 3 to 4 block with Brad Kai Fox, Assistant Extension Specialist at CTAR UH Manoa. We're talking about new progress in aquaponics. So, how do you build a commercial aquaponics facility now with all that you know, with all the science we have going on at CTAR and around the world? How do you start? Is it a big capital expense? How big should it be?
Ooh, yeah, those are thorny questions. I would say definitely if you're interested in building a commercial system or running a commercial system, you should go visit a commercial farm first and foremost, because there's nothing like seeing it to understand it.
Fred Lau is a very friendly guy. He'll show you around.
That's a great example.
Mari's Garden.
So that I would say number one, that absolutely there is a upfront cost. Fish tank has to be scaled up to size. You should also do market research. That was one of the early on. I mean, this is typical of any agriculture operation. Identify your market first. Make sure you can supply things that people will buy. Don't just grow anything. Make sure you can keep up with the volume. So the question of how big it should be has to be intimately tied with your market research. You definitely should not build it all at once. You should build maybe some of it.
That's what Fred Lau did. He did it increment by increment. Smart guy.
Absolutely. So, but part of that too is just to get used to the system. And I think what's coming out of our local commercial growers is that there is a maximum size for a commercial system. You don't want to make an entire acre be one system. You want to make smaller systems within that
Because
acre.
then something goes wrong in one system, you don't lose the whole acre.
Exactly. Exactly. Because again, these are recirculating systems, both in terms of the plants and the fish, especially the fish. So it also makes it a little bit easier strategy for harvesting the fish and selling the fish. Because again, you don't want to dump all your fish at once. They are the nutrient generators for the plants, so you have to keep some amount of fish in each of the tanks to keep the plants happy.
So you have to do a lot of maintenance with a commercial system.
In fact, what came out of this, the economic study, was that the number one cost to aquaponic systems is labor.
Yeah. And that means somebody has to stand by, watch the fish, check the water, all that, all the time. Because if you have a big investment, if the market is waiting for your product, you can't afford to not watch it. And lose it.
Exactly.
That's a big bad business.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, exciting. So I was going to ask you before when you finish your studies, I mean, if you ever, some people never finish them. I never finished my studies. But when you finish your studies, is there any chance that you'll run a commercial aquaponics facility?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't put it out of your
fun.
mind.
Yeah,
It could be profitable. It is profitable.
It'd be a lot of fun, I think. Challenging, but fun, yeah.
Yeah, I'm reminded of this great abalone farm. I forget the name of the company, but it's in the Big Island in Kona. And there's a South African woman there who is the manager of that farm. And she loves doing it. And it gives us such gratification to have, fields, sheds of abalone there. And I said to her, would you ever eat abalone in a restaurant? She said, no, I could never do that. These are my friends. Anyway, so coming back to, the personal side, the backyard side, getting involved as an ordinary human being, not as a commercial investor or anything. How do you start? The guy in Kaimuki, he presented it to the buyer of this house. But how would a guy start it, or a woman start it, if they had the house and they wanted to begin it in the backyard? What's step one?
Well, I think a great place to start, my boss, Dr. Clyde Tamaru, has a website, Sustainable Organic Agriculture Program, SOAP. He's a SOAP topic leader. If you Google his name, he has a YouTube video, about 5 minutes long, that shows how to construct a backyard aquaponic system from start to finish. That's a great place to start. It's free, and it's great. He takes his time, shows you how to build it. There are also a number of outlets, retail outlets, that sell aquaponic systems, sort of turnkey. That would probably be
a kit.
A kit.
It comes in the mail.
No, it's locally.
Okay.
Locally
Okay.
sourced.
Okay.
They import. A lot of them import, specially made grow beds for this purpose. It's most important, not most important, but very important, is to use the right materials, food safe materials. There's a lot of materials, plastics, that will degrade quickly, will leach chemicals into the water, so you have to be careful about that. High density polyethylene is a good material to use, and so these outlets have these grow beds and fish tanks that are meant to be have animals and have people consume things from them.
Are there contractors that you can hire who are expert in this area who come to your backyard and set it up for you?
There are a number of essentially consultants that will do that for sure. I can think of 5 or 10 right off the top of my head. Yeah.
So let's assume I do it. I mean, what is the probability? I'm just based on your experience anyway. What is the probability that I, as an ordinary citizen person who I can do a few things, but I can't cook eggs, that it will succeed, and that it will not fail because of some mistake I made? It's not 100%, but what is it?
Well, yeah. So that's a difficult question too. But I think everybody can succeed. I really do. What's I think should be part, and it's not really part of these consultants' offerings at this point, is some follow-up, some extension. I think if you had a month or so of a sort of an on-call, hey, help me out with
started,
this.
Yeah.
After about a month, and then learning how to just the satiation feeding is crucial. Learning that technique, just getting comfortable with your fish, making friends with your fish, I think you'll be fine. But it's just, there is a little bit, just buying it and setting it up, you have I would say 50-50 chance of failure, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But if you have even a little bit of follow-up training and help and support, I mean, anybody can do it.
But if you fail, if you fall on the wrong side of that 50, whatever, you can start right up again, like riding a horse. There's no harm, no foul. You can just do it all over again, no problem.
Definitely. Now, unfortunately, it discourages a lot of people. They see the death, all these dead fish. They don't know what, to take them out. Sometimes they stink.
And they blame themselves,
right,
as they should. Huh?
Well, they should. Yeah.
So why is this kind of stuff, aquaponics, either small or large, important to Hawaii? But what's why should we all think of it as a public policy issue?
Right. Well, I think especially the backyard food production is critically important, and that's not just aquaponics, but sort of this idea of victory gardens, back to the First and Second World War, where at that time actually 75% of our food was produced in our backyards back in that time. And in the United States now it's only less than 2% of Americans produce all of our food, right? So we've switched. In terms of food security, I think at least trying to grow things in the backyard is very important. A lot of times doing it in the dirt in people's backyards is not feasible. The quality of the soil is very poor. You just can't do anything. You could do raised bed stuff, but the most important thing to me about aquaponics, and again, this is also similar to hydroponics, is water conservation. Aquaponics, as opposed to if you were to grow the same thing right next to the aquaponic system in the soil, is on the order of, it's probably use about 5% of the water that you would use because it's recirculating. And water is our most precious resource, fresh water. And agriculture uses a lot of water. So if we can even start to conserve water in this sense, to me that's the most important thing about this kind of technology, soilless agriculture.
Give them a website to learn more.
So again, CTAR, Clyde Tomorrow is a good one. Dr. Clyde Tomorrow, SOAP Topic Leader, SOAP Topic Leader is a good place to start. A lot of our extension publications are listed on that website, and links to videos and that kind of stuff.
Brad Kai Fox, Assistant Extension Specialist at CTAR UH Manoa, talking about new progress in aquaponics. Thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Aloha.